Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and welcome to Garage 42, where I've been storing my 1988 911 and my E39 M5, but it's time to get my own cars out for the season. So right now, we're gonna take this down to Bond Group actually, because they're gonna do a little bit of preseason maintenance for me. I wanna do an oil change, which is gonna be a Brad Penn high zinc content 15W40. A lot of folks use a 20W50. In New England, it doesn't always get hot enough for that to be completely necessary and can add a little more viscosity than you want. So it's totally fair to run a 15W40. It's still within the margins on the book. And I'm gonna have them tighten up this fan belt because it's just a little loose. I had replaced it a couple of years ago and I think it's just stretched out a little bit. So there's shims. I don't want to be responsible for messing that up. But I feel like I haven't seen this car in forever. It's always hard to put stuff in it. I do have a new steering wheel that's going to be going in it soon because this Alcantara one, man, it has seen better days. And we've got the old horn button, and yeah, we're going to change that out for like a proper one. So let's jump in, get this thing down to Waltham so the boys at Bond Group can get some work done on it, and then we'll start using it for the season. It has been a long time since I've started this car. Oh. It's nice to see when you start it up, you get your oil pressure here, the temperature will come up, and that's actually critical for when you're changing the oil because this has an enlarged oil cooler up front. So what happens is there's actually a thermostat in the system. The oil, while circulating back there right now when it's cold, when it starts getting hot, there's a thermostat up here, or back there, sorry, that'll open up and allow oil to come all the way up through the front and back down. And that allows the air to literally cool that oil like a radiator, essentially, just an oil cooler. It's not that fancy, but it's just larger. So that means that when you do fill this with oil, you need to be cautious that you're putting enough in so that way when that thermostat does open up and it's allowing that oil in, that you're actually filling that space and you're not just going low on oil in the midst of trying to cool it. There's no power steering on these old G model cars. 964 was the first generation to get power steering. So you're gonna wanna move a little bit before you start adding inputs. Otherwise you could maybe do a little damage to that steering rack by just putting excess force on it. Taking down trees. Oh, man, this thing is not really like in love with the bumps. I'll tell you that much. A lot of folks asked about this shifter. This is a Wevo 7 shifter. That's an ugly Porsche eating hole. We don't want to go in there. This shifter is great, but a lot of people think it's like a sequential gearbox when they see it because it's a fairly intimidating shifter to look at and even to drive, but it is just a normal H pattern 5-speed. You just have to be kind of on your game and understand where things are. You always got to have like spatial awareness about you when you drive this car. It's also got the G50 transmission, not the 915 gearbox, which is a lot more forgiving on the front of synchros. This is definitely in the camp of cars, like most cars, but this especially, they want to be driven, they want to be moved, they want to be used. If you don't use these cars, I feel like you're at risk of letting them fall apart. And it's just a game of deferred maintenance too. Like when you don't drive things because you're like, oh, you know, I'm not gonna do this, I'll do it next season, you almost start to forget about the things the cars need, and then they start deteriorating and they need more and more and more. By the time you get to the car, you know, 10 years later, you need to rebuild the dang thing, or at least do extensive maintenance and start replacing seals that may have dried up. So, you know, I am gonna try to be good about driving this thing more and more. Of course it's raining. Of course it's gonna rain on the day that I take it out. That's fine. It might have the cutest wipers in the game too. They're just little guys. They go all the way across. They're kind of fun. Whenever I pull a car out of storage though, like I drive them pretty carefully at first, just because you want to make sure that like if there is anything going on, whether it's like maybe a brake issue, a clutch issue, something that could be a game ender, you want to find out at low speed where you have an opportunity to recover from it. You don't want to just bust out of storage and blast off. You know, you always check the car underneath for spills and fluids anyway, but just in case something catastrophically failed while it was sitting. Entropy is very real. The universe does not want your car to stay together. The universe wants your car to die. Same with everything else, really. We're all dying, and so are the cars. This is why I like having incredibly well-kept original condition vehicles is such a big thing. hear that? Sort of a straight cut fourth gear almost. It always winds a bit in fourth. I love that sound. When I see that sign, I trust it. Thank you for not going. I've been really happy with storing the car though at Garage 42, not just because I like having it there and I feel safe, but I like that it's indoors in sort of a climate controlled environment, because old cars have old stuff, right? It's old leather. There's even like a tiny little crack right here that's starting to form. I don't really feel comfortable that that crack is gonna get better, right? It's not gonna self-heal. So had it sat in my garage in a non-climate controlled environment in the cold, getting super duper cold and contracting and then getting warm again and heating up, and that hot cold thing with varying humidity, that can do a lot of damage to just interior pieces of the car. So I know that at least I'm preserving things for the future, and it gives me time to sort out how I'm gonna deal with this. I know some folks that can help me out in that department when it comes to my interior stuff, but like, I wanna do it right, and I wanna make sure that I'm not like jumping the gun on something, or I'm leaving something to rot and wither away improperly. So, you know, sometimes when you just store your car properly, it gives you the opportunity to think. It gives you the opportunity to like figure out, how are you going to manage this? How is this gonna get done correctly? Brakes are feeling all right. The brakes in these old 911s, these air coolers, it's like standing on a piece of wood. So the pedal moves, but it doesn't move that far. And the more pressure you put against what feels like you're just pushing on a plank of wood, the more braking power you get. But you're not getting some like wildly satisfying pedal travel. Don't go, thank you, nice and easy. See, I'm definitely the vulnerable one in this car here. Nice and easy into the work zone. But yeah, the brakes on these cars always feel a little sketchy. I think people get in these cars and then they freak out because they're like, whoa, there's no brakes. It can feel like that. You've just got to dig for them, and you've got to really use your strength. You got to use that leg. Old cars are like that. And actually, some new cars are like that, but primarily just McLarens. McLaren have the most like old school race car braking feel out there. It's great. I kind of love it. Some people get in McLarens and they freak out because they're like, holy cow, where are the brakes? They're there. You just gotta dig for them. You know you're in a yuppie town when the speed limit on a road goes down at 20 miles an hour because it splits a golf course. That's okay. I'm the self-indulgent wiener in his 911. The gearing of this car is a bit long. Definitely a highway car. Definitely designed for some speed. So it's kind of funny when you're driving around town, you just find yourself like sitting in second gear a lot. Like, not the most comfortable thing in the world, but dems to brakes. Is that a Vigan? Yeah, cool. Does not care, does not care. Like any good Saab owner, aloof to the world, just driving his Vigan. You start to really appreciate the giant sidewall on these tires, which would have been considered a low-profile tire at the time, being 16-inch wheels, but there's still big balloon sidewalls on the sides of these R888Rs, and that's really helpful because it means that the suspension isn't doing all of the work trying to absorb the junk that are New England roads. In a lot of videos, I try to hide that fact. I not like hide it, but I don't promote the fact that we have terrible roads here. I go places that I'm like, oh, I know the roads there are good. We're gonna be in a safe place. It'll look good for video. Now I'm like, I wanna show this off. This is a problem. I'm sick of looking at it. These plates have been here for like 2 years. Seriously, maybe 3. Sections, but it's funny, you can't even break it down by like, oh, the wealthy towns have the good roads. The wealthy towns have terrible roads too. It's a mess. Initially I was going to have them adjust this idle, but this idle actually isn't so bad. I think that's fine. It's like I mean, it is like a little high, like 50 RPM high, but that's not that high thought it was like, I had a recollection of it being at like 1,000 or over earlier, and maybe we're actually in business. That's the happy place. Right in that like 4,000 RPM and over, man. This thing really comes alive. It's amazing. This one has a Steve Wong chip in it, and that tune goes such a long way. I've driven a ton of these 3.2 Carreras, and when they're bone stock and they're not tuned, they do feel a bit anemic. This always felt fast to me, and it was a good benchmark for like, wow, that's what it's supposed to be. That's what it's supposed to feel like. And then you get into like a stock car and they feel a little sluggish. So I'm always happy to have the fast car for sure, but you know, you've got to do that Steve Wong chip. It makes all the difference in the world. Makes it more drivable. All right, in we go. Let's see if Justin can open this door for me. Where do we go? Sweet. Welcome to the Bond Group, little buddy. This is like a bit of slack on that side. It's nothing crazy, but I don't know.
It's actually tighter than that one because I was comparing it after we were talking.
Oh, you think so?
It's actually tighter than that one.
Maybe it is okay. Maybe I've imagined all of these things. So unfortunately, I got so caught up with my friends over at Bond Group that I did not do a proper outro. But while Justin takes care of my 911 and gets the oil change done and a new belt, I figured I'd show you my new steering wheel. Now, it's the exact same steering wheel, like I said, as the one that's on the car. It's just that this one has leather, not Alcantara. And I managed to get this actually from my friend Maddox, who had this on his 944. And he didn't drive it that much, so this wheel seems like it's practically brand new. I mean, look at this. I'm so excited to get this on the car. Oh, and check out the killer new horn button. A proper Porsche crest and not just a little picture of one behind a piece of plastic. So here's to a killer summer with my non-air conditioned 1988 3.2 Carrera. Hopefully I don't sweat my life away in it, but at least I'll have a nice, sweet leather steering wheel to sweat on while I'm driving it. Thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. There she is, your first time seeing it, I think.
I think
you got a brake light out.
Oh yeah, probably. You just gotta jiggle it though, Patrick. You gotta jiggle it, and then it works.